So this is just a quick character guide for Gunfire Reborn. I know this is quite an old game, but it's still in early access, so they're still adding new stuff. So up to now, you currently have 5 characters. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what each character does and how they are useful and which playstyles will generally work with which characters. So starting off with the cat, which was the first character to be released in the game. He's probably the most balanced because he has a stun and a smoke grenade, as you can see here. So the energy orb stuns the enemy for a certain amount of time, which you can upgrade using the boxes. And he also has a smoke grenade, which does AoE effect damage and also slows the enemy using corrosion, and does damage over time, which also you can upgrade. The reason I say he's the most balanced is because he can be played practically anywhere. You can play him as a frontliner, a backliner with a sniper rifle, or a frontliner with a shotgun, or a mid-range with one of the assault rifles. So he is by far the most balanced in my opinion. Then you have the bird, who is specifically a frontliner in my opinion, because he has a leap, which closes distance very quickly and also does damage upon an enemy. And he also has a cleave, which is very useful to use after the leap. Like, you can leap into combat and then use the cleave. And it's also useful if you happen to get trapped in a corner and need to take multiple people, because it actually has kind of an AoE damage effect, so you can hit more than one target at once. So does the leap to a certain extent. But not as much as the cleave, because that's obviously a sweep. The best weapons to use on him generally are, like it says in the description here, like shotguns or the swords that are in the game are generally quite effective with him. Also, the fire scale, which is one of the assault rifles, is also quite useful, simply because of the fact that it has an ability that if you do a crit, then it basically stacks up into a fire scale bomb, which you can then use, which is basically like a shotgun blast of fire damage. Which is extremely effective at close range against pretty much everything. Then you have the Tiger, who is specifically, in my opinion, a backlaner, basically, because he has the ability to basically do a critical shot, which is what the Fatal Current is. So with sniper rifles, he's best with sniper rifles, simply because of the fact that the damage from this only actually does only works on the single shot, like the first shot that hits the enemy. So with assault rifles and the like, he's not as useful, simply because of the fact that obviously the snipers do the highest damage, and if you can get a critical shot with that while also using the Fatal Current, it can lead to basically just one-shotting even some of the high-tier bosses, even in the higher difficulties. Then you also have the dog, who is somebody I don't generally play, but if you can play him, he is very good. Again, he is a frontliner. He basically has the ability to dual wield both of the weapons that you have for a short period of time, which means that he can be extremely damaging. His explosive grenade is also kind of useful in various situations, but the problem that I find with him is that he is built like a frontline character, but kind of is played rather passively like a backline character, simply because of the fact that he does actually have the lowest armor and shield in the game, which is kind of a little bit backwards. But he is useful in certain situations, and is like quite a good one if you like being up in people's face, again a bit like the bird. And the newest character they've released, which is the bunny, she can be played mid-range and also for close range, because her ability the sword out ability does actually have quite a range on it, and also at closer ranges it works a bit like a shotgun blast, as in all the swords will hit one enemy rather than spreading across multiple enemies. The Fatal Bloom kind of works a little bit like the smoke grenade for the cat, but it's, instead of AoE damage on the floor, it's basically like a sweep, a bit like the bird's cleave, but that can slow enemies and also does a decent amount of damage and does damage over seconds, but you can also get an ability which combines the two together, which basically means that if you use your Fatal Bloom on somebody and it hits, I don't know, 3 or 4 enemies, then you use the Sword Out ability. That means that the Sword Out will actually home in on the enemies that you hit with the Fatal Bloom, which is really quite nice. She's the second fastest character in the game, I believe. So yeah, the bird is the fastest, followed by, oh no, actually the tiger is the fastest, funnily enough. I never actually knew that. It's been a while since I've played, so he actually has the highest movement speed, but she is on par with the dog, who is one of the slowest, strangely enough. But she feels a lot faster as a character, in my opinion, and she is the character I currently main myself, because I just enjoy the way she plays. So yeah, the one thing I will say is, if you are wanting to play the bird, I would suggest not doing so until you have the talent which gives you health back, which I think is one of these ones. Yeah, restore 1 armor whenever your shot hits an enemy. Because that is extremely useful because of the fact that he basically only has armor. He does not have a regenerating shield. So that means that you can potentially, especially if you have that perk, constantly regen your armor, but it does mean that it doesn't regen over time like the others do, unless you happen to get one of these scrolls like golden medal or silver medal, which basically means you either regain armor from killing an enemy, or when you do damage. So in my opinion, if I was going to rank these characters as easy to play for new players, I'd say that the cat, because obviously it's the first one that you get, is definitely one of the most balanced. Then I would say probably the bunny is kind of balanced because she can be played in more than one position, whereas all of these generally, like the other 3, have to be played in a certain position really to be effective, unless you're extremely sort of, good at the game and can sort of adapt, but they do generally have their sort of own position. So yeah, that's just a quick run through of the characters in Gunfire Reborn.